The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Testing.
Welcome, everybody. We're just going to give people a chance for the next 1 or 2 more minutes to get signed up here because we see they're adding themselves. So if you just bear with us another minute or two, we'll get started. Thank you. Hello, everybody, and thank you for joining the webinar. I'm David Tall from REO Industry Directory, and it's a pleasure to have you all on this webinar with us. We are very, very pleased to have James Browning with us today doing this training. He is the CEO of REO Institute and also an acclaimed author of How to Work with Asset Managers. He is an absolute expert in the REO world. And as many of you know, the commercial side of things, multifamily, is becoming a lot more lucrative, and a lot of agents have had interest in this. So we're very pleased to have him on board to give us all some insights that someone only like James has. So without further ado, I'm going to pass this over to James to go ahead and begin. James, are you there?
Yes, thank you very much. I do appreciate that. I do, and thank you for your organization for having me. I appreciate that. You've been very kind to me, very kind. So I would like to give you a little bit of background on myself, if I may. About 27 years ago, I know I'm really old. They call me dirt, but anyway. I started out in residential, and a little story how I got involved in commercial is after about 2 years of residential, I had a very close lawyer friend of mine who was handling a divorce, and he asked me, he goes, I know you do residential, but could you sell 11 industrial warehouses for me? And they ranged in size from 3,000 square feet all the way up to about 22,000 square feet. And I said, well, I'll try my best. So I went to, he talked about diving into classes. Well, I did at the local board, took commercial classes, started taking some CCIM classes and other commercial classes. And as a result, I was able to successfully sell those. In traditional commercial, you have to understand that it's much lengthier than it is in the residential arena. So I think, if I remember the time frame correctly, I liquidated those in a year, 18 months, something like that. So that was my first taste of commercial, and I've been involved ever since. I was the commercial director for CB, Coldwell Banker Commercial, CBRE, and for 16, almost 17 years training and being their director here in the Denver, Colorado, or Western region. So that's my background, and I've been doing commercial ever since. So my background in REO, this is my third time around in the distressed market. We all remember back in the 80s, well, maybe some of us, older, remember back in the 80s, and then we had a blimp back in the early 90s. Nothing of this magnitude currently. However, what we're seeing now, just to give you a little example, is we're seeing a huge increase of BOV or BPO. BOV is a broker opinion of value. We use that term a lot in the commercial terminology. BPO interchangeable actually. And I myself, just today, I completed one BOV on a multifamily, and I had a phone call about 3 hours ago, and they wanted me to do 5 more. Well, I'm going to be in California teaching next week, so I could not accept them. But anyway, that's a little bit about my background. I always like to say that at times that in real estate, we always want to control real estate, and I really don't think that I came to a conclusion a long time ago that I have little control over my real estate transactions. So I, in my book, perfection is never achieved. Progress is always achievable. I'm not a, that's just one of my favorite sayings. It kind of keeps me grounded because I know that in real estate, most of us try to be perfectionists, and that's very frustrating at times. So let's continue, if we may. Let me go back here. So welcome, evaluation BOV of multifamily assets. We're going to cover a lot of material, So if you have questions, I highly recommend that you please type them in the screen, and we'll stick around and answer as many questions as we can after this webinar. And I'd like to add, the folks, REO industry, the directory, it has been fantastic to me, and I have picked up some valuable information from them, and also some work. So I highly, if you're a basic member, you probably will get REOs and BPOs, that type of thing. However, I highly recommend that if you can at all upgrade your membership, you'll get a lot more attention and probably a lot more work through their network. So I highly recommend that. You get exposure for the asset managers, and so please consider that. Also, I would like to, before I forget, if anybody's on LinkedIn on this phone call, any of the attendees, please look me up. I have a database of about 500 or 600 asset managers on LinkedIn that I communicate with. So it'd be to your advantage to connect with me on LinkedIn, and you can use my connections to hopefully increase possibility of increasing your business. All right, let's get on with the course overview. We're going to do valuations, BOV, broker opinions of value of multifamily assets. Now, I want to stress that this is not, you will not, at the end of the session, you'll learn a lot of terminology and hopefully a lot of information. So let's continue. Commercial terminology and tools necessary for multifamily valuations. We will briefly talk about the income expenses of both the income approach and sales comparable approach. What they're asking nowadays in BOVs is determining NOI, or net operating income. And as a result of doing that, you'll get the expenses of the property, and you'll come out with a cap rate. So we'll go over materials and tools used, necessary for multifamily valuations. We'll again do the income approach, sales comparable approach, NOI cap rate. I do have a checklist that I use a lot, and I can make that available for people that contact me. So this checklist is, I think, 34 or 35 items long. So when you go out to the property to perform your BOV, you can even use it for REOs. You can fill in the blanks of this checklist. It's a valuable tool to use when determining valuations. We'll go over the information tools provided for the best practice of evaluating traditional commercial multifamily. You can use this also in multifamily and in today's world, REO properties. So we're going to go over briefly today. Of course, this is not a full-blown 3-hour class, but we'll go over valued multifamily buildings, the basics of financial analysis, and more than anything, I'll throw some tips in there. Appreciate what the banks outsourcers want to know about apartments and or multifamily properties. That's really the key, how to work with the lenders and the banks and the outsourcers. If you know the terminology and you know what they're expecting in their deadlines and their procedures and their timelines and their tasks. So here we go. The primary source of income for a building is rent from tenants. That is the primary. Potential rent income, we don't touch on that so much during this session, but we do, if you're interested, at the end of the class, we do offer a 3-hour course, and I'll get into that here a little bit later. Please pay attention to some leases provide for tenant to pay CAM, that's common area maintenance, real estate taxes, utilities, and these are considered additional rent. Now, also additional rent can be a cell tower on a multifamily building, could be satellite tower as well. These items plus other property income comprise of the PRI. This is also referred in our world, or the commercial arena, as rent roll or total tenant income. For those of you that are not familiar with CAM, common area maintenance, this is used a lot when we are valuing properties in mostly upscale buildings, whether LA, New York, Chicago. This could, but it's included, but not. Well, it could include perimeter green belts, interior common space, elevators, hallways. If you have common areas in the entrance, that type of thing, and this is usually paid. This is paid by the tenant. Now, they're going to ask you on the BOV what a vacancy contingency adjustment is. Okay, especially if you're dealing in the REO world, I will tell you that most buildings will have vacancy at one time or another. If you're dealing in the REO world, you'll be asked to price or value properties that can be 50% occupant or totally vacant. So, in the traditional sense, traditional valuation, we use 5 or 10% vacancy rate. However, when you're dealing in the REO world, you might not be able to obtain the leases or get the information because that's not currently available by the seller or the owner of the building itself. Another thing you have to understand is how much of the building may be unoccupied during a year. That could change seasonably, depending on where the multifamily property is located at. If it's in Miami, it could be more seasonal than LA. So it just depends on the submarket and the state. We have other property income, and this is what I was referring to earlier. Owners derive other property income from sources other than rent from tenants. This could be, as I said earlier, you have lease space on the roof for satellite or cell companies, laundromats, billboards. In New York, have huge income um, is derived from parking, where they might charge you $75 or $100 a day in New York City. Also, billboards. I have a very good friend who practices. He's a commercial broker in Chicago, Illinois, and he has several buildings that he sold recently. That this billboard is maybe 30 feet by 20, and it's situated along Interstate 55. So who knows, 45, 60,000 cars a day pass by there or more, and they're seeing this billboard. So the income from that is extremely high. Now you have to concern yourself, the owners and landlords, really, the only thing they're concerned about is the expenses that they have to pay. So you have to do the NOI or cap rate. You can do projections. I did a BOV this morning that I did projections on a building because it was basically vacant. But anyway, they're concerned about expenses they have to pay. And I won't read this list verbatim. However, direct expenses, real estate taxes, insurance, utilities, these are direct expenses that they have to be concerned about, and utilities, gas through water. And then on the other flip side of the slide, we have, on the other side of the slide, we have contract services that can be cleaning, trash removal, landscaping, snow removal, if you're in a snow belt state, security. There's some buildings, even in my hometown of Denver here, that there's 24-hour security. They have a person on the property, along with their audio and video equipment for the security. And in many elevator maintenance, if you have a building in New York City and that they have 2 elevators that are running 30 stories, you have to take that into account. Accounting, legal services, payroll services, salaries, professional services, commissions. I have, in fact, he just flew out here from New York City, very good friend of mine who, what he does in New York City, all he does is rent apartments. He represents the buyer, or the tenant, and he negotiates these leases for $3,000, $5,000, $6,000, $12,000 a month, and he makes a very, very good living. So as an owner or seller of the property, you have to be very, very familiar with professional services or commissions. Okay, when you're doing a BOV, you have to be aware of the repair and maintenance. Investors or owners, they will set aside a fund for repairs or emergencies. This could be 2-3% of the gross income coming in on it. It could be a percentage. It could be a set amount. One thing I do want to caution you is that all expenses are recorded as annual totals. And I see this, that's a big mistake that I see brokers trying to complete these multifamily valuations, is they forget to actually figure it as a yearly expense. Okay, so we're going to dive into income approach to valuations. What is the property worth? I mean, that's what the asset managers and that's what the BOV representatives and outsourcer reps, they want to know this. Most financial institutions use the income approach for valuation when appraising a building for a mortgage application. But you know what? I will tell you that in the last year, I worked with Clear Capital. I worked with Inside Valuation as a preferred commercial broker here in Colorado, and other companies as well. They, in the last, I would say, 1.5 to 2 years, are becoming more demanding on using the income approach for valuation. That wasn't so 2-3 years ago. So they are using this pretty commonly in today's BOV. So net operating income, this is the total gross income less all owner operating expense. Remember, total gross income and all operating expenses is the net operating income, or NOI. You will have to get the NOI to do a proper cap rate. Just remember that. Owner expenses do not include income taxes, I see, or debt service expenses. Please take note of this. I do see that as a common mistake also on BOVs. So the cap rate, capitalization rate, or in short, cap rate, can be looked at as a percentage of the net operating income to the purchase or sales price. There is a direct correlation between the income a property produces and the value. By using a cap rate, a market value can be determined. Please be aware, and I think I have a, this is the formula for that. Cap rate, market value equals net operating income divided by cap rate. Let's go back here for a second. Okay. I'm not sure if it's on this slide presentation or not, but let me give you an example. It might be a couple, 3 slides down the road, but I want to give you that example now. Say, for instance, you have a building that's the seller wants to sell at $1 million. Okay, so your net operating income is $100,000. Okay, that does result in a 10% rate cap, or you can adjust it up or down depending what cap rate the investor is looking for. So if the cap, just remember the price, the listing price or the asking price is in direct correlation of what the cap rate is. Let me move on here. So what is a cap rate as an investor looking for? You know, each market area will have a trend for the cap rate the investors are looking for. I can tell you that before this storm hit us, this foreclosure storm, it was common to have many investors look for a, depending again on the type of property and where it's located at, 7, 8, 9, 10%. I mean, it was common to get 8 or 9% return on your investment in a multifamily property. Now I'm seeing that the cap rates are lower. They could be 5%, they could be 6%. Again, depending on the location and the market. So the cap rates have fallen in value, in my opinion, lately, and hopefully we'll see a trend where they become more attractive, the cap rates, as we go forward from here. Also, I do want to say, and I don't have this on the slide, but I do want to share this with you, is that multifamily is doing better than other categories in commercial real estate. By that I mean, you know, if you compare multifamily to industrial or retail, hospitality, office, it's kind of been a, and I want to be cautious when I say this, a brighter spot for investors than other categories of commercial real estate. So, I mean, they're all suffering across the board, but if there was a slight bright spot, it would be multifamily. Okay, here's the problem that I was trying to explain to you earlier. An office building has a net operating income of $87,000 is for sale. What is it worth? If you use a cap rate of 11%, which in today's market is outstanding, determine the market value. Okay, here's the good example. NOI divided by cap rate 11%, your market value can be $790,000. Now, if you do the adjustment on the cap rate of 10%, okay, at a NOI of 87,000 and a cap rate of 10%, your market value then goes up to 870,000. I just wanted to show you this as an illustration or an example so you get the concept. Okay, evaluating the leases. I do want to caution you once again that if you do get a BOV, there'll be many times, more so than not, that getting a lease or getting information on the property is going to be most difficult. So sometimes we have to market a property, an investment. Projections showing future income and expenses are used, as I did on this BOV that I did this morning. And these are typically 5-year projections. Can be 3, can be 5. I'm seeing more BPO companies ask for this in today's market. Okay, here's that financial analysis. Listing investment properties requires a checklist to record all the financial information. I do not have it on this. If you do want it, you'll have to email me, and I will give the email address for you to do so at the end of this webinar. And the one thing I wanted to share with you, I'd like to share a story with you that happened to me about, I guess, about 3.5 years ago. I received a BOV assignment from, well, anyway, it doesn't matter who from, but anyway, and it was a 14,000 square foot office building that used to be, in years back, it was a multi-family property for a while, museum, radio station, and then when I received the assignment, actually, it was classified as residential. So over the years, it had many uses, but currently, when I was performing my exterior BPO, it was a residential property. So they signed it to me, and I pulled the documents from the county assessor's office to get as much information before I went out to the property. And I drove out there, and I had an idea it was a large property, and it was 14,000 square feet, taking up a half city block. It was built in 1870, 1880, depending on the records back then. Anyway, it was very old, and when I pulled up this property, I thought I was in France because it was a Gothic building, French. It had the French flavor to it with the turrets, and this mansion was just pretty. I was in awe. It was an eerie feeling looking at this. So I get out of the vehicle and drive and walk up to the foundation, and I'm doing the exterior BPO. And I'm walking around this half-city block of property, and I'm noticing sandstone. Little pieces of sandstone, maybe 1/4 of an inch, maybe 1.25 inches in diameter. And they're in piles around the base of the foundation. So I proceeded to walk around the entire building, and I found numerous little piles and noticed that we had sandstone that was dropping from the 3rd story, which the 3rd story is about 40 to 45 feet above ground level. And these were coming down about 55, 60 miles an hour. And I noticed these were falling off, cycle or two here, then I walk around the corner, and another one. So I thought, well, maybe I should go get a hard hat. But anyway, I took the necessary photographs of the exteriors of sandstone. Now this building, built in Colorado with dry climate, sandstone does not contract and expand very well. So anyway, I started taking pictures of the piles of sandstone and the exterior photographs of the property, and probably 30, 40 pictures. That's what I would do in a situation like that. I did. I documented the liability issues walking around this because, if I was going to do the exterior BPO with a potential for an REO listing, I wanted to make sure that this property was safe, and with falling sandstone, that was not the case. So I went directly back to my office and reported that we had an exterior that was not expanding or contracting. And reported that to the BOV company. They sent back email shortly thereafter that they would send somebody out to solidify the exterior of this property to the tune of $14,000, what it cost. So what I did then was I put the liability or the issues back on the seller to notify them that there were issues in trying to protect myself as a real estate broker as much as I could. Long story short, I tell the story in class. This happens to be the most haunted house in Denver within a 600-mile radius, and it's called the Croak Patterson Mansion. For those that want to Google it, well, I sold that a couple years ago. Let me move on. So the financial checklist is a line-by-line guide, and you can use it. So again, I will give you that email address for you to request that if you would like that. When you're valuing an REO, many times you will not have the data to complete the income approach. So again, you're going to have to do projections. Building may be partially or totally vacant. I mean, sometimes there's no rental history. There is none that's available, none. And you won't have access to leases or operating expenses. So many times you have to fall back on the sales comparable approach, and you will use both in today's BPO. Okay, I just want to go over some maintenance assignment, property preservation. This is geared towards REOs a little bit. I do touch on that in this particular webinar, but I go into it very in-depth on the class. Property preservation will need to be assigned, okay? Could be assignment from the outsourcer, broker, or preservation company. What I mean by preservation companies, they're partnering with national preservation companies. That is not one company. That is many companies that are working with lenders and banks and outsourcers to do their property preservation. Okay? There's still some banks and lenders out there that you'll be responsible for the property preservation and maintenance. So be aware that if you get into the REO arena for commercial. I'm assuming that many of you are residential REO brokers, so I'm not going to really dwell on this. I think you know how to do it, and we all know it's the most direct use of principle of substitution. This is the most often used for commercial REO valuations than today. The downside of this is, and the NOI, due to the absence of key income and operating expenses data. Just a quick overview on the BPO. The banker notes any dissimilar features and makes an adjustment for each by using the following formula. Of course, we all know the sales price plus or minus of adjustments indicate the value of the comparable versus subject. And what I like to do, this is what I teach to my residential REO class. Make your adjustments on the comparable up or down to match the subject. I think that's kind of the key right there. How are we doing for time? Okay, I would just like to, the parameters for commercial are much different than they are for residential. They're a little more lax in a couple of these parameters. I did a BOV about 2-3 weeks ago, and it was with Clerk Capital. And it was a retail building with about 8 units, and it was actually in Boulder, Colorado. And I pulled up my sold comps and my list comps, and I even stayed within the 10-mile radius of the subject, and I picked out the comps. And I had questions about, okay, well, these comps aren't as accurate as I would like. So I contacted them and asked them, all right, 10 miles, the comps aren't, I'm not comfortable with those comps. I said, may I go outside like around 20-mile radius of this property? And of course they go, yes, you may go 20 miles to 22 miles outside the radius as long as you can get the comps of your choosing. And I said, fine. So I cleared with them what they wanted or would accept. I communicated with them. That's really quite very, very important if you're conducting these type of evaluations. So normally these are parameters that I suggest in my class. Okay, now each company is going to have their own guidelines on specifications for their parameters. In many situations, they'll be very close to this. Comps to be within 10 miles, or contact them, or if you use them, please explain to them comps not available within a 10-mile radius, had to go outside that radius to obtain proper comps. Comps to be plus or minus 25% of the building size of the subject. Give you an example. If I had a 1,000 square foot subject, is it okay to go 750 square feet on the lower end? Absolutely. Is it okay to go 1,250 square feet over the subject? Absolutely. The third one would be comps to be plus or minus 15 years of subject's age. I'll give you a tip on that. If you make the BPO representative job much easier, I try to always put in not the subject's year of construction. If I'm allowed to, and there's places to put it, I will, to make their job a little easier. If it was built in 1990, I will go ahead and say, okay, it is 22 years old. Little shortcuts like that, if they're available, will make your BPO much more effective, and they appreciate little things like that. I can tell you that from experience. Comps to be less than 12 months old, or explanation required. The BOV I completed today, I had to go out 18 months. Let me go here and, okay. Okay, what happened? Okay, when we use types of units, we call them units or doors. Okay, and they will specifically ask you what types of units. If there's a total of 50 doors, what is the breakdown? And they will say, okay, if there's 50 doors and the property has 14 studios, 12 one-bedrooms, 12 two-bedrooms, or 12 three-bedrooms, they want to know the breakdown of that. And they're pretty specific about, to be accurate on the door count. Okay, NOI summary. We determine actual and projected rent for the entire property. Make a reality adjustment for vacancy. We consider all other forms of income. Then we determine all expenses paid by the owner, calculate the NOI. And we are at the end. I succeeded in my allotted time. Education is the key to succeeding in real estate. The one thing I do want to mention is that if you want my mistake, I had my associate do the slide presentation, and I have to take the fault for this, but it's REO Institute. Please do not use the of. It's reoinstitutecolorado.com. reoinstitutecolorado.com. Please eliminate the of. Again, I have to apologize for that mistake. Again, I would like everybody to please contact me on LinkedIn and connect with me. I think I would like to share my contacts and my knowledge with you if you so desire to contact me. We are going to present a 3-hour class, and you'll be available, once you completed the multifamily evaluation. It's a 3-hour class. It's quite intense. You will get the checklist, and you'll also get the class. And upon completion of the class, there is currently not a test. We're working on that, so you might be to your advantage to take the course now. And the price on that is $129. I'm not going to sit here and I don't sell products. I don't sell DVDs. What I'm about is education. So if you're interested in participating in this class, please contact me at reoinstitutecolorado.com. I want to say thank you for everybody to listening to me. If you have any questions, I'll stick around until the questions are answered, as long as it doesn't drive me into 9 o'clock tonight. Just joking. So on that note, if you have any questions about the class, if you have any questions about this particular webinar, please feel free to contact me, and I will answer every email. So that's all I have, and I appreciate your time, and I bid you a good day. Dave, are you there?
Thank you, everybody, for joining, and thank you so much, James. And we will be in touch with you all. If any of you have any questions or need any help contacting James, you could obviously contact us as usual on reoid.com. Thank you, everybody, and have a great weekend.
Thank you.